regarding SEMPER. We've done a bunch of episodes and clips talking about different things, and I never want to go too far afield, so to speak, from the foundation, which is SEMPER, which the SEMPER concept and SEMPER triad, which of course is putting yourself into the mission, the personal mission of becoming a self-engendering machine of perpetual effectiveness and resolve by taking care of your body, your mind, and your spirit. And so I never want to do too much without coming back to the foundation and talking about it. If we bring new people into the fold, if people discover the podcast or the videos for the first time, we want to make sure that we never are too far away from first principles, as they say. So we'll get back into it and we'll kind of break it down a little bit. And I guess it's only fair to start the whole thing out with the big question, which is why? Why should I do this? Why do I need to do this? Why this? Why that? Why this? Why not that? And that's fair because the old "because I said so" doesn't really fly these days, and it shouldn't fly. Quite frankly, it's dismissive of the person who asked the question, and it's dismissive of the actual concept to start with. And it's interesting since I've been out. This is a new thing since I left the service, but there's a lot more. I don't know if emphasis is the right word, but there's more of the shared knowledge concept going on in the United States military. And it's because psychologically, someone is much, much more willing to not only execute orders, but work on being the best possible at executing the orders if they know why. And it's not like you have to have, the battalion commander come down to, a group of PFCs and go, okay, here's our overall battle strategy. And this is what we hope to do in a year. It's not that. It is, we're going to execute this mission and here's why. So, anyway, without getting down that whole road. So the concept of why, you should ask why. As Thomas Jefferson said, you should question with boldness everything. So ask why. And that's fair. It's fair to the process. And so regarding SEMPER, you may ask why? Why bother? I do my thing and it's all good. Who cares if I leave trash on the ground or, don't put the shopping cart back in the place or don't separate my recyclables or bump my car stereo through the neighborhood, which is just delightful, let me tell you. Or, who cares? I eat gravy and Red Bull 6 times a week. Or, I let my teenager have 24/7 unsupervised access to the internet, which is just a stroke of genius. Or I smoke too much, or I drink too much, or, every day or whatever. And I don't read enough and I don't write things down and I don't read to my little child or anything about that. Or I just don't care about anything in general. Who cares? What's the big deal? Right? Well, the big deal is, as we've covered, you don't live in a vacuum. And if you aren't engaging in behaviors that will produce the highest form of you, that's the goal here, to produce the highest form of you. And again, this isn't about outcome-based processes like results. I want to be X, so I have to do Y and Z to get there. That's not what this is about. There is no end to the process. So it's about developing the system to become, the world needs you to be the highest form of you. And if you're not there, if you're not trying to do that, then you're not living up to your potential. And we'll get to potential. But again, if you aren't engaging in behaviors that will produce the highest form of you, then you are failing yourself. And by failing yourself, you are actively creating a whirling vortex of chaos around you into which everyone you encounter is pulled. And again, goes back to the you don't live in a vacuum thing. You can't live in a nihilistic world that says nothing that I do matters, so I can do whatever I want or not do whatever I want. Because everything you do affects the people in your orbit and the world, the things, the earth, the world, the universe in your orbit. And those people damn sure care about how you treat yourself and those around you. And here's the thing. If that's not the case, if you got a bunch of people around you who don't care how you treat yourself and the world around you, then you have failed on another level at being a human, the most fundamental level, perhaps. And you are now living in a pit of codependent misery. Mm-hmm. And perhaps, maybe, if you went the other direction, you surround yourself with people who elevate you instead of dragging you into that pit. Maybe, perhaps, then you'd be compelled to take care of your body, mind, and spirit. Perhaps you'd be an inspiration to your children and to your children's friends. Wouldn't that be weird? Maybe even attract other people into your orbit who want to better themselves. And then that circle grows out into your community. And then you are something special. You are something valuable to humanity without even being a celebrity or an athlete or any of that kind of weird stuff, a politician or a ball player. You are now becoming a self-engendering machine of perpetual effectiveness and resolve. You are an asset. You are a source of light, and you are a springboard for the greatness of others. Let's not forget that in this group of elements as well. And I can't think of a better thing to be. A springboard for the greatness of others, an inspiration, a source of light, and that's what you are when you work on this mission. When you come into this world, you are pretty much nothing more than a little ball of potential, a small force of chaotic energy with the potential to become a force of some kind. And if you live in an existence that says, meh, I'm just going to be, whatever happens, I'll just do my thing, then once again, you're not rising to the level of becoming the very best version of you. And that's going to affect everything around you. You may think if you try to live in a world that says that that's not going to matter, then you're going to find that you live in a constant state of friction and disappointment and conflict and a whole bunch of other nasty variables that don't need to be. And you're probably going to be pretty confused about it because you just think that nothing matters. I'll do my thing. It doesn't affect anybody. And you never can put your finger on it. You never can put your thumb on it as to why your life is completely and totally chaos all the time. And it's because you are not living up to your potential. Potential is there. It's a thing that is out there. It's not when a baby's born or a child is, going from middle school to high school and transitioning into that time where they're really starting to sort of shape their future. And they're really starting to first have those inklings of what can I be? What should I be? What will I be? Then you're still potential. You're still that little ball of potential. And you need to organize those feelings and organize those thoughts and organize your actions into things that you understand that matter, that create the best version of you. And that's what SEMPER is. What do you got to say about that?
I want to actually step back just for a second on that.
Step on back, sister.
All right. Because I mentioned this amazing podcast/vidcast to everyone that I see, including strangers. And when they say, well, what's it about? And I say, well, it's all about being a self-engendering machine of, now you have made me screw up.
Wah, wah, wah.
Of perpetual effectiveness and resolve. And actually, I'm glad that I did that because that actually kind of brings in what I'm trying to say here. Because when I say self-engendering machine of perpetual effectiveness and resolve, the first thing I get is, wow, that's a mouthful. I think we should take a moment to back up and explain each one of those words. You've done it before, but I think we need to do it again because it is a lot to take in, but it also just encompasses everything.
Isn't it amazing that you say that? And I have right here in front of me a breakdown. Isn't that
Yeah.
wonderful how partnership works like that? So, yes,
Great minds think alike.
indeed, self engendering machine of perpetual effectiveness and resolve. That is quite a mouthful. So, let's break it down. Engender. Engender means to cause an action, to generate or instigate. And then when you bracket engender with self on the front end and machine on the back, you have an engine that creates its own fuel. So you have to engender, to generate or instigate, to make happen, to produce. And then you put self on the front of it. And that's kind of, well, hopefully self-evident. Self engendering machine. Okay. Now, to kind of back up a little bit and sort of get back into those words, self. This is where it all has to start. Everything about this concept, about Semper, starts with the self. The entire group of words starts with self. You can look outward for help and resources, but it begins with the self. You have to make this your mission. You make this mission personal to you. That's what you have to do. You have to keep going down the road and keep going down the road. And as we say, do the things that you need to do in order to ingrain them into your consciousness so they become self-engendering. So that's the self, to engender, engendering, to produce, to cause to happen, to cause an action, give rise to, generate, instigate. Again, this is a word that it means, it's an action word. It's production. It's moving things. It's generating action, motion. So when you to self-engender, you are producing or generating yourself, obviously. And a machine, let us not presume to skip over things that seem kind of self-evident and simple. A machine is an apparatus consisting, now this is, when I wrote this down, again, never presume that people know things. You hear a thing, you see a thing, that's a thing, there it is. But how many times do you get down into it? Everybody knows what a machine is inherently. Everybody knows what a machine is. But if you look at how it breaks down, the etymology and the definition of the word, it really fits in with this, because a machine is an apparatus consisting of interrelated parts with separate functions used in the performance of some kind of work. So now we're getting somewhere. Self-engendering machine. All right, I got this. So I got to do it. It starts with me. I got to do it myself. I got to initiate. I got to instigate. I got to generate using this machine, which is this thing and this thing and this thing, which is a group of moving parts working toward an end, working toward an action, working toward a production, producing some kind of work. And then we get to perpetual, which of course is constant, persistent, and unending, And that's what we say about this mission, the Semper mission, the Semper concept, is it doesn't end. There's no end. This isn't outcome-based education, which was a disaster. There's no end to this. There's no point that you're working toward, because you can't get to enlightenment. You don't achieve that. What did they say? If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. Because if somebody tells you that they are enlightened, then you're in bad company, because that's typically ultimately a self-destructive attitude, and destroys everybody else around you. If you think you have, that's basically Milton's definition of evil, which is one that, to paraphrase, one who's in love with their own thoughts and is unwilling to even consider the transcendent. Effectiveness. All right. effectiveness, productivity, efficiency, capability, and practicality. Sounds pretty good. I like that. So now we're getting somewhere and we're winding up to resolve, which is great that we sort of start with the self and end with resolve, which is willpower, steadfastness, intention, courage. That's a good one right there. Courage, fortitude. So you put all those things together. You start with the self, you produce, you cause to happen using this machine that we talked about, and you do things to make them perpetual. So that when you do that action that is an improvement upon yourself or helpful to someone or something around you, that you do it to the point of where it becomes it becomes something that's not a part of your thought process. It becomes a part of you. And there's no longer a relationship, like a spatial relationship between the action and what caused the action. It's part of you. And that is what self-engendering means. The self-engendering machine makes its own fuel. And that's kind of your goal here, is step by step, is to create create the building blocks of good and of production within your life on this road, on this mission, that it's not something where you have to go to the gas station. It's something that you make your own fuel.
Well, it's a matter of creating a habit. And when you have that habit, you no longer have to think about it. You just instinctively do it.
That's exactly right. It's self-engendering. You don't, again, the relationship between the thought and the action is gone. It just dissolves. And then resolve is, just sum it up in one word, fortitude. Okay. Courage. So that is the SEMPER concept. That's the words broken down. So if you can kind of, you put all those words together, all those syllables, self-engendering machine of perpetual effectiveness and resolve, 19 syllables. It's a big fat mouthful. But if you marry the concepts and the thoughts with the words, then it just it becomes something you don't have to remember. And that's kind of the point. So when you combine these concepts, you get a person that I'd like to emulate. I'd like to be that. And so how does one become a self-engendering machine of perpetually effective resolve? It doesn't seem like something you could simply roll out of bed and proclaim. You know, I can stretch and scratch and I'm awesome. That is me today. I am awesome. I don't know. That's Stuart Smalley philosophy, because that says you don't have to work today. If you roll out of bed and say that I am this, then you don't have to work today. You have to have discipline in order to create this self-engendering machine, in order to do that thing one time, the thing that's hard. And by the way, you should go do things that are hard. You should force yourself into uncomfortable environments. You should do things that are hard, because that will open up your thought process. You should have conversations with people with whom you disagree.
It's called growth.
Because it's likely they know something that you don't. And having a conversation with someone with whom you disagree, you will learn something every single time. You may hate it. It may be painful, but you will learn something every single time. If you silo yourself and you only talk with people who say the exact same thing and think the exact same thing that you do, nobody's ever going to learn anything, and who cares? You're not ever going to be pushed into the zone where you can do some critical thought and critical learning. And maybe, hopefully, you can turn it. Socrates was basically executed for this kind of thing, because it's dangerous to make people think. It's dangerous to the machine and the establishment. But the Socratic method is to basically come into, let me boil it down. Let me kind of paraphrase it like this. There's a group of people talking, and they're all saying, here's a thing. Yes, I agree with that thing. That's a good thing. We should only talk about that thing. And then you come in and go, yeah, but what about the other thing? And when you accept the premise that you don't know everything and that you are not correct, and that you enable yourself to think about an alternative concept or a different idea, it doesn't mean that you're going to go down the road and go, you know what? You're right. I agree with you. Now I only agree with you. That's not the point. The point is to flip your perceptions upside down sometimes. Think about it from the other side, or, there's not just two sides, from a different side. And it's either going to grow your philosophy, or it might change your philosophy, or it might strengthen your philosophy. But if you never go down that road, that sort of Socratic road, then again, you're going to be, the term these days is siloed. You're going to be in a thought silo where everything is right here and nothing goes this way. So discipline, you got to wanna. And that's the thing. If you don't wanna, honestly, just go away until you do, because if you don't wanna, then you're just pretending. And the root of, here's the thing, the root episode, the root inspiration of this entire podcast was based on authenticity. That one word, authenticity. And if you don't wanna, but you talk about what you wanna, then you're just lying to yourself. And I can't think of anything more pathetic than being inauthentic with yourself. That indicates a need, a whole different set of needs altogether.
You once got on to me about discipline, and we were discussing it, and I was talking about my growth this year with getting into a good exercise routine and good eating and reading and all the things that we're talking about here, body, mind, and spirit. And I was saying that, yeah, I had zero discipline starting the beginning of the year. I'm an only child. I have 100 reasons that I could explain why I have zero discipline, but it's building. Now, when I say that I have discipline now, I mean that I had zero and now I have some, and each thing that I do perpetually, the more I obtain. But man, I will backslide still. I mean, we're infallible.
Yeah,
but it's a stair climbing event.
Yeah, it's also very important to know that in a lot of people, I think, can relate to this concept if I talk about it with diet and exercise in particular, because those are the two things that pretty much everybody thinks about, whether you do anything about it or not. I think pretty much all adults have thought about their diet and their exercise. And one of the things that hurts you is that it's not health. Physical health is made up completely and entirely of lagging indicators. And what that means is you can eat healthy and exercise well for 2 or 3 weeks and not see a thing. In fact, you might still be gaining weight. You might still feel bad. You might still be tired. You might still, you're not lifting more weight, or you're not running any farther or faster. And they quit because they don't see any results. And that kind of goes back again to what we were talking about with what a tragedy outcome-based anything is. You can't focus on the outcome. You can't focus on the time that it takes, because if you do those things, you're just going to be miserable to start with, and you're pointing yourself at some sort of arbitrary goal that indicates a stopping point. And why, whether it's education or physical fitness or emotional health or anything like that, how is there a stopping point? So you can't do these things with outcomes in mind. But so people People diet. I hate that word, but for lack of a better word, people diet and exercise for 3 weeks. They see no results and they quit, or they binge out on ice cream and pizza one night. And then they're like, man, I feel so crappy now. Oh, the heck with it. I've already ruined everything. And then so they don't go back the next day or the next day. And then it's a week, and then it's 2 weeks. And then they're like, screw it. And then they're back 10 pounds heavier or more out of shape than they were before, simply because they fell off the mission or the path or the wagon or whatever one time, or they weren't seeing immediate results. And that's really important to know, because again, I know this is all very Zen Buddhist, but there's no end. There's no goal. I'm sorry, there is a goal, but the goal continues to go. Your goal is to stay on the mission. That's your goal, is to stay on the mission. But there's no end point. There's no end to the path. There's no resolution to the mission. And you have to conceptualize and be okay with that. And if you do fall off, if you do have a day in which you don't do something that you should have done, that you've been doing well, or you have a month of not doing something that you were doing that you know you should do, there is no guardrail that keeps you from getting back onto your mission. So I'm glad you said that, because it's important to know that you can always pick back up. And you should never be discouraged from seeking that highest form of you. Doesn't matter if you fall off. We're here for a long time. And we the culture thinks too much in terms of what happens right now. And we don't like things that are ethereal and don't have a concrete sort of resolution point to them. So you can get back on mission. You can correct the course. You can do these things. You're allowed to. Nobody's going to say no, because this is your mission. Nobody else is in charge of this. That's another thing that you need to remember. No one else is in charge of this. You build your own mission and you execute it. But you have to have the discipline to stay on it, and you have to have the discipline that if you fall off, you can get back on. And that's mental, emotional, and physical discipline to get back on mission. Kind of getting back to this about you got to wanna, going back to that point. And this is important, and this kind of comes back around to what we were talking about just then. And it's really difficult to get back on mission if you don't surround yourself with people who want what's best for you, or with people who elevate you. If you have a bunch of malcontents, a bunch of negative Nellies, or a bunch of people who are unhappy with themselves in your life, you're in deep, deep trouble. This is what we talked about last week. First of all, you're not Mother Teresa, and you can't play lifeguard to the universe. So it's not your job to rescue anyone. That is never your job. That is presumptuous beyond belief to think that you can, to start with.
But it's different. Now, explain that, because rescuing is different than helping. It's good to help.
Of course, you're always there to help, but
right.
You can't be on a mission that if you say, well, I'm here and I'm doing well, so I'm going to go, that person in my life who is, and this is the key point to remember about this. And I always say, I'm absolutely cutthroat when it comes to this, which is family, friends. I will never lose a friend over family, friends, acquaintances, bosses, employees, anything in your life that is negatively affecting your mission. Cut, gone, go. However, if that person comes to a realization of their own, gets on their own mission, decides to kind of do their own SEMPER thing, absolutely, man, I'm right here for you. I'm not running away from you. But if you're in an unhealthy position, if you are in a place where you are nothing but chaos and friction to those around you, I am not going to have you in my life.
Amen.
Absolutely not. So remembering this whole thing is about the part of the concrete that builds the foundation is surrounding yourself with people who elevate you. Create a healthy environment in which the inevitable negativity of life doesn't affect you. So it's always going to be there. You can't isolate yourself into a world without friction. You just can't do it. But you can control who has an effect on your life to a greater or lesser extent. And you do have to learn conflict resolution is a thing. You can't just bump into somebody and go, oh, well, I don't get along with you immediately, so you're gone. That's these concepts they're not black and white. Okay. You can't sort of say, all right, here's the definition of this. So I'm doing this with this and this with this. And when I say that about cutting away the cancer, cutting away the negativity, cutting away the friction, you surround yourself, meaning your circle, your confidants, the people who you trust most in the world. And that's, maybe it's family, maybe it's friends, maybe it's, whoever it is around you, you bring them tight because they're more precious than anything that you can possibly imagine. And they will be the ones who will be there if you fall off mission to encourage you to say, hey, dude, it's all right. Come on. Those are the people with whom you need to surround yourself. If you have people around you who are like, oh, you fell off mission, huh? Come on down, stay down here with us. It's all good, brother. We got you down here. No. And that's maybe the most difficult choice you can make in life is who to surround yourself, who to keep around you, and who to keep at arm's length. And again, kind of going back to last week, or 2 weeks ago, which is just because you're not my friend and that word means something doesn't mean you're my enemy. Doesn't mean I have antipathy toward you. Just means you need to stay over there and I'll be over here. Whenever we cross paths, we'll be cordial to one another, but I'm not going to let you affect what I'm doing in a negative fashion. So you create that healthy environment in which the inevitable negativity of life doesn't affect you. And you should probably throw away your TV and get off social media to detox from that as it is. But, that's a whole other can of worms. That's my hill to die on. You guys do whatever you want with that. But anyway, so where to start? So now we know we asked why and we defined. So where to start? And first gear is always the slowest. The train doesn't leap away from the station at top speed. And if you've ever been behind an 18-wheeler at a red light, you know what their first 3 gears are like. It starts slow. And in order to begin to work toward being this machine, as far as I can tell, you need to be disciplined enough to create your own fuel. And that's what we talk about with being a self-engendering machine. You can't be self-engendering without the self. You can't rely on someone else to create the fuel for you. You strive to surround yourself with good and decent people, but you can't make them do the heavy lifting for you. So start small, set a singular goal. It's what we talk about constantly. If you think about it in terms of shooting. Shooting becomes very boring if you don't have a target. Same kind of concept. Start something, pick a target, find something that you can do to start this mission. Pick a thing, one damn thing that you know that you should do, no matter how small, and do it. And then do it again. Discipline. I don't care if you're tired or hungry or in a bad mood or don't want to, or it's way over there. Do it again. Then do it again and again and again until it's no longer a thing that you should do, but it's a thing that just is. The relationship of motion and time, that's what I say with this concept, the relationship of motion and time is gone from this activity and consideration just disappears. It just is. In other words, you don't think about it. You don't go through, it becomes latent. It becomes automatic. It becomes rote. It's a thing that your body does without you even thinking about it. It's the operating disk going on in the background of yourself. So that's how, and I know that's maybe an oversimplification for some people, but it has to start small. If you start on a grand scale, you're liable to fail on a grand scale because you can't start in fifth gear. So does anyone have any questions? Anyone have any questions? Self-engendering machine of perpetual effectiveness and yes. No? Okay.
If you do, be sure to leave a comment and maybe we'll address it in future episodes.
Yes, indeed.